2 pink lines. This isn't happening. This can't be happening.
The pregnancy test trembles in her hands. 2 pink lines stare back at her like an accusation. Kate's knees give out. She slides down the bathroom wall, marble cold against her spine, until she's sitting on Italian tile that costs more than her mother's monthly rent. The crying starts silent, no sound. Just her chest heaving and tears running hot down her cheeks because she learned years ago how to cry without making noise. Daniel hated noise. She stares at those 2 lines, and one question sits in her chest like a stone she can't swallow. Whose baby is it? The answer could save her, or destroy everything. She doesn't know which man is the father, and that's the whole problem. If your heart just stopped, good. You're exactly where I need you. Hit the subscribe button because this story is about to wreck you in the best way. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and buckle up. Now, let's rewind to where it all started. 3 months earlier. Daniel Yoon kissed Kate's forehead the morning he left for Seoul. She stood perfectly still and let him. His hand found her chin, tilted her face up, then his thumb brushed across her bottom lip, slow, possessive, while he stared at her mouth like he was memorizing it. "I'll know if you leave," he said softly. "The doorman sends me photos every time you exit the building, time-stamped." He smiled, just slightly. "I like knowing where you are." Kate's stomach turned to ice. "I won't go anywhere," she said. The lie tasted like freedom. He studied her face for 3 long seconds. Then he leaned in close, so close his breath was warm against her ear, and whispered, "Good girl." Her skin crawled. He picked up his luggage and walked out. Kate watched from the window, watched his black sedan disappear around the corner, watched until she was absolutely certain he was gone. Then she ran to the bathroom and threw up. 2 years of marriage, and she'd just realized the cage had been built so gradually, 1 bar at a time, that she hadn't noticed. She was trapped until the door was already locked. She had 72 hours. She called Amara before the elevator even reached the lobby. Finally, Amara answered. "I've been sitting outside your building for an hour eating a croissant and judging people's shoes." "You've been what?" "Surveillance, Kate. I'm conducting surveillance." A pause. "Also, I brought you a wig." Kate stopped walking. "Why do I need a wig?" "Because it's gorgeous, and also because your husband might have someone watching, but mostly the first thing. Amara, you're wearing the wig. This is not a debate. I did not sit in this car for 63 minutes so you could have a boring hairline tonight." Kate laughed. A real one. The kind that reminded her what her own voice sounded like when it wasn't performing compliance. 20 minutes later, she picked the apartment lock. Amara had sent her a YouTube tutorial 3 months ago with the caption "Just in case sis," and walked out in a black dress that Daniel would have quietly removed from her closet, and the wig that made her look like someone he'd never married. She had no idea she was walking straight toward the man who would set her world on fire. The club was underground, exclusive. The kind of place that existed in the space between the city's official nightlife and the real one happening in rooms most people would never see. Kate felt alive for the first time in 2 years. She danced, she laughed, she moved through the crowd, like a woman who had just remembered what her own body felt like without someone else's permission weighing it down. Across the very important person section, cold eyes found her. Park Jae-won sat at his private table like the room had been architecturally designed around him, which wasn't entirely wrong. He owned the building. Sharp black suit, unreadable face. The particular stillness of a man who hadn't been genuinely surprised by anything in years. His second-in-command Sung leaned close, murmured something in Korean. Jae-won's jaw tightened. "Send her away. She doesn't belong up here." One of his men moved toward Kate at the velvet rope. She watched it happen in real time, watched him politely redirect her, then watched a blonde woman, visibly drunk, objectively less composed, walk through the same rope 30 seconds later without a single word. Kate had a name for what just happened. She'd been carrying that name since she was 8 years old. She didn't say it out loud. She assembled her face into the expression she'd perfected over a lifetime, the one that said, "I see exactly what this is," without giving anyone the satisfaction of watching it land. She turned to leave, and walked directly into a wall of expensive suit and cold authority. Jae-won had come down himself. Their eyes met. Up close, he wasn't what she expected. Dangerous, yes. She felt that immediately in the way the entire room quietly rearranged itself around him, but also just a man, one who looked, for half a second, genuinely caught off guard. She held his gaze, 3 full seconds. Then she stepped around him and walked away without a single word. Jae-won stood completely still. Sung appeared at his shoulder. "That's Daniel Yoon's wife." Everything stopped. Something shifted behind Jae-won's eyes. Not surprise, recalculation. The slow turn of a man who just realized the woman he dismissed is now the most dangerous person in the room. "Keep her in the building," he said quietly. He found her at the bar 10 minutes later, sat down without asking, ordered her drink without asking, the specific one he'd had someone find out in the last 8 minutes. She looked at the glass, then at him. "You think expensive whiskey cancels out racism?" Sung, watching from across the room, had to physically turn away. Nobody spoke to Jae-won that way. Not his men, not his enemies, not anyone who understood what he was. "I thought it might open a conversation," Jae-won said. "You could have opened one at the door, before you had me turned away. That was a reflex I didn't examine." She turned and faced him fully. "And now that you've examined it, now I'm curious, not an apology." They both understood that. Kate also understood she had 72 hours before Daniel's return flight landed, and she was sitting beside a man who radiated danger the way summer asphalt radiates heat. She should have left. She picked up the drink instead. "You have 10 minutes, she said. "You're already down 2. Day 1 was supposed to be nothing. Just a woman breathing without supervision. But the conversation with Jae-won stretched past midnight, and Kate couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at her like her thoughts actually mattered. Day 2, he cancelled 3 meetings. Sung watched this happen with the expression of a man writing detailed notes for future blackmail. "What?" Jae-won said without looking up. "Nothing," Sung said pleasantly. "Say it." Sung set down his coffee with ceremony. "She made you laugh. Twice." He paused. "I have worked for you for 9 years. I have a wife, 2 children, and a mortgage. In all that time, I have never once heard you laugh." Jae-won stared at him. Sung picked his coffee back up, just noting it for the record. The thing about Kate was she didn't perform anything. She was sharp the way people are sharp when they've spent their whole life being twice as prepared because rooms never made it easy. She noticed everything. And she corrected Jae-won without hesitation. "You just interrupted me," she told him mid-conversation. "I was building on what you said. You replaced what I said with what you thought was better." She tilted her head. "Those are different things." Sung faced the wall to hide his smile, but it was a quiet moment on day 2 that shifted something neither of them was ready to name. One of Jae-won's senior associates made a comment about Kate. Racial, casual, the kind of ugliness that comes from a man who's never been made to stop. The room went still. Jae-won looked at him for 1 flat second. "Clear your desk," he said. "Tonight, no explanation, no second chance." Kate found out through Sung 3 hours later. She went completely still. He didn't have to. He didn't make an announcement, Sung said carefully. He just did it. Something in her expression moved. Small, almost invisible, like a wall that had been braced against pressure for years had finally shifted 1 inch. That night, they sat on the balcony of Jae-won's penthouse while the city sprawled 40 floors below. She told him about her mother working double shifts in a hospital laundry, about the scholarship, the master's degree, the architecture firm where she'd been the only black woman and had learned to be so prepared that nobody could ever touch her work, about the woman she'd been before Daniel found her and decided she was something worth owning. Jae-won listened without waiting for his turn to speak. Then she asked him something nobody ever asked him. "Are you lonely?" The question sat between them like something fragile. He looked at her for a long moment. "I don't think about it. That's not the same as no." He had nothing to say to that. She didn't fill the silence, just let it exist between them, warm and devastating, while city lights reflected in her eyes. He was in trouble. He knew it. He filed it under things to deal with later. Later never came. Day 3. Kate's phone lit up on the table. She glanced at it. And the woman sitting across from Jae-won, alive, present, 3-dimensional, switched off. Like someone cut the power. Everything behind her eyes went dark. "What happened?" Jae-won said. "Nothing." Flat voice. "Professional rebuild in progress. His flight." She picked up the phone, turned it face down. "I should go." Kate, her name in his mouth, first time. She went still. "Tell me," he said, quietly, without the machinery of manipulation he usually wrapped around requests. She didn't want to. But 2 years of holding it alone had real weight. Physical weight. So she told him. The prenup, the monitoring app, the smart lock. The car registered only in his name. the credit card alerts, the way Daniel had spent 2 years methodically disassembling who she was and replacing her with something that fit neatly inside his life without inconveniencing it. J1 didn't move through any of it. When she finished, the silence stretched. "Then I know Daniel Yoon." Kate stared at him, not casually. His voice had gone somewhere else, colder. "We have history. Years before you, the air changed. What kind of history?" He looked at her. "The kind I'll tell you about later." A pause. "I can help you get out of that marriage. Men like you don't help people like me for free." "You're right." He held her gaze. "One more night, that's all I'm asking." She searched his face for the lie. Couldn't find it. "Okay," she whispered. That night started as a transaction. Clean edges, defined terms, but somewhere between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., the framework dissolved. They talked until the city went quiet. He told her about growing up in a family where love was expressed through silence and expectation. Never words. She listened with the kind of attention that made you feel like what you were saying actually mattered. Around 2 a.m., she laughed at something unexpected, and he stopped talking just to hear the end of it. Around 3 a.m., the talking stopped for different reasons. His hands found her face first, slow, like a question. Her answer was closing the distance herself. He kissed her like he had nowhere else to be. J1 kissed Kate like time had agreed to wait. His fingers traced the line of her jaw, her neck, every touch unhurried and deliberate. She hadn't been touched like she was something worth being careful with in so long that the gentleness alone almost undid her. Her hands found the buttons of his shirt, fumbling slightly. He covered her hands with his, steadied them, then helped her. The fabric fell away and she pressed her palms against his chest, felt his heart beating fast beneath her fingers. "Kate," he said quietly. Her name like a question. She answered by pulling him closer. He lifted her easily, carried her to the bedroom like she weighed nothing, laid her down on sheets that smelled expensive and clean. The city lights filtered through the windows, painting everything in shades of silver and shadow. He took his time, learned the geography of her skin with his mouth, the curve of her collarbone, the softness of her stomach, the place where her pulse beat fast at her wrist. She arched into him, breathless, her hands tangled in his hair. When he finally moved against her, into her, she gasped. Not from pain, from the specific shock of feeling present in her own body for the first time in years, of being touched like she mattered, like she was wanted rather than owned. They moved together slow at first, then faster, desperate, like two people who had been holding their breath underwater and had just broken the surface. Her nails dug into his shoulders. His mouth found hers, swallowed the sounds she made. Afterward, they lay tangled together, breathing hard, her head on his chest while his fingers traced absent patterns on her spine. "I don't do this," he said quietly. "Sleep with people, feel things." A pause. "It's been a long time." She pressed her lips to his chest. "Just once. Me too." They fell asleep like that. When Kate woke, dawn was breaking over the city and J1 was gone. She found him on the balcony, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Korean, his voice low and controlled. He hung up when he saw her. "Coffee?" he asked. What was that about? He looked at her for a long moment, then made a decision. "Sit down," he said. She did. And he told her about his brother, 23 years old, bright. The kind of kid who collected vinyl records and made terrible jokes and believed fundamentally that people were good. He'd invested in a business deal that Daniel Yoon brokered, trusted him, put everything he had into it. Daniel had gutted it over 4 months, systematically, surgically, every connection severed, every asset liquidated, made it look like market forces instead of murder. 6 months after losing everything, J1's brother stepped off a bridge. The silence after was suffocating. Kate sat with it. Then, "Tell me who he was, before all of it." J1 stopped. She waited. He told her about a kid who wanted to open a music store, who called their mother every Sunday, who asked J1 for a loan in the final weeks, and J1, busy building an empire, distracted, annoyed, said no. "I told him I didn't have time," J1 said quietly. "Those were the last words I said to him." Kate reached across the table, took his hand. He looked down at their fingers like he'd forgotten what that felt like. "Daniel didn't just take his money," J1 said. "He took his hope, made him feel worthless, spent months breaking him down until there was nothing left." He looked up, met her eyes. "That's what Daniel does. He finds people and he dismantles them, piece by piece, until they forget who they were before him. Kate's throat tightened, because she knew exactly what that felt like. I've been looking for a way to destroy him for 3 years, J1 continued, and then you walked into my club. A pause. I kept you close because you were useful, because you were his wife and that made you valuable. And now? Kate asked quietly. He looked at her for a long moment. Now the first don't know what you are, he said, except that losing you would hurt worse than anything he could do to me. The honesty in his voice was devastating. Kate stood, walked to him, sat in his lap and wrapped her arms around his neck. Then don't lose me, she whispered. He held her like she was the only solid thing in the world. Neither of them knew that 40 floors below, Daniel's private investigator was already uploading photos to a secure server. Photos of Kate leaving J1's building. Photos time-stamped with dates and times. Evidence that would be filed away and saved for later, when it would hurt the most. The depositions were surgical, glass boardrooms. Daniel's legal team, expensive suits, sharper smiles, using words like credibility and emotional stability in ways that had nothing to do with law and everything to do with what Kate looked like and where she came from. She sat through every session with her hands folded, jaw locked, performing the specific neutrality of a woman who had spent her life refusing certain rooms the reaction they were hunting for. Amara sat outside every single one. I brought provisions, she announced after the third session, holding up a container. We have aged Gouda, prosciutto, and these crackers that are architecturally overachieving, but they were on sale. Kate sat down beside her, stared at nothing. That bad? Amara said. They implied my judgment was questionable, due to the cultural dynamics of my choices. Amara put the container down slowly. I'm sorry, the cultural dynamics of your art? Don't. Kate, I'm sitting here very calmly. Your left eye is doing the thing. My eye is unbothered. Amara picked the container back up. Eat the Gouda, we'll address the eye later. Kate ate the Gouda, it helped slightly. Nothing helped completely. Week 4 brought a parking garage confrontation. 2 of Daniel's associates cornered Kate after a deposition. Got close, started asking questions that weren't questions, the kind designed to intimidate. They didn't notice J1's car pull up behind them until it was too late. Sung stepped out first. Then 2 other men. The associates left with compelling reasons to reconsider their employment. Week 5 brought the street confrontation. Daniel and J1, 20 feet apart in gray afternoon light. The air between them was the specific temperature of something very old and completely unresolved. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Daniel said calmly. Good, J1 replied. She was mine first. She was never yours. You just convinced her she had no other choice. Daniel smiled, just slightly. And you think you're different? You're using her the same way I did. Just with better packaging. J1's jaw tightened. We're done here. Not even close, Daniel said softly. He walked away, but the words landed. That night, Kate asked J1 if Daniel was right. Am I just another strategy to you? She said quietly. He looked at her for a long time. You were, at first. A pause. Now you're the thing I'd burn everything down to keep. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. She believed him. Mostly. The doubt was small, but it lived in her chest like a splinter she couldn't quite reach. Week 7 brought an unexpected visitor. Kate opened the door to find Amara holding 2 coffees and wearing an expression that meant trouble. We need to talk about Jisoo, Amara said. Who? J1's right-hand woman, the one who looks at you like you personally cancelled her birthday. Amara handed her a coffee. My cousin works building security at J1's office. She saw Jisoo meeting with someone who works for Daniel. Kate's blood went cold. Week 8, Jisoo made her move. She gave Daniel's people Kate's exact location and schedule. Kate was taken during a coffee run, briefly, brought to a grey room that smelled like expensive cologne and restrained violence. Daniel sat across from her, didn't touch her, didn't raise his voice. I've filed paperwork, he said calmly. Preliminary custody documents, for a child that doesn't exist yet. Kate felt ice spread through her chest. You're not pregnant, he continued, but you could be. He tilted his head. And if you are, and if it's mine, you'll come back. The law is very clear about parental rights, Kate. Very clear. He leaned forward. I've been patient. I've played by the rules. But if there's a child, he smiled, that changes everything. I'll have access to you for 18 years, minimum. Every birthday, every holiday, every school event. A pause, you'll never be free of me. Kate felt something crack inside her chest. You think he'll stay when it gets complicated? Daniel said softly. Men like J1 don't do complicated. They do useful. And once you stop being useful. She was released an hour later. When J1 found out about Jisoo, the confrontation lasted 4 minutes. I trusted you, he said. I love you. Jisoo's voice broke. 6 years, J1. 6 years watching you build walls and then she walks in. What you did was unforgivable, he said quietly. Leave. She left. Week 12. The divorce was finalized. Kate walked out of the courthouse carrying her name, her credentials, a fair settlement, and the fragile weight of freedom. Daniel found her on the steps. This isn't over, he said softly. J1 stepped between them. Daniel looked past him. Directly at Kate. You know what the worst part is? His voice was almost kind. I saw you at that firm, watched you work, so careful, so controlled. I thought if I could make someone like you need me, it would mean I'd finally built something that couldn't leave. Kate felt something shift. But you did leave, Daniel said. So now I have to wonder what that makes me. He walked away. And Kate understood for the first time that Daniel wasn't just cruel. He was broken. And he tried to fix himself by breaking her. The rooftop was J1's idea. City lights below. Cool air. The kind of silence that only exists above everything, where the noise of the world doesn't quite reach. He didn't get on one knee. That wasn't him. Never had been. He placed a ring on the table and slid it toward her. No rehearsed speech, no performance. Just the object and the undeniable weight of what it represented. Kate looked at it. It was beautiful. The kind of beautiful that understood her. Not flashy, not a statement of ownership. Just precise and perfect, and chosen by someone who had been paying attention. She reached for it, stopped, her hand hovering inches above the velvet box. I stopped hating you somewhere around day 2, J1 said quietly. I just wasn't ready to admit it. She looked up at him. I've spent 3 years wanting to destroy Daniel Yoon, he continued. 3 years planning, calculating. And then you walked into my club and I thought, he stopped. Started again. I thought you were the perfect weapon, the thing that would finally let me finish what he started with my brother. Kate's chest tightened. But you weren't a weapon, J1 said. You were just a woman who laughed at my terrible jokes and corrected me when I was wrong and made me feel... His voice cracked slightly. You made me feel like maybe I wasn't just the thing my brother's death turned me into. He reached across the table, took her hand. I don't know how to be the man you deserve, he said. I don't know if I even can be. But I know that losing you would break something in me that I don't think I could fix. He paused. So I'm asking, even though I don't deserve an answer. Kate felt tears burn behind her eyes. She looked at this man, this dangerous, broken, impossibly careful man, and felt something crack open in her chest. Then she placed something on the table and slid it toward him. A folded piece of paper. He picked it up slowly, unfolded it. A pregnancy test, 2 lines, positive. The entire city seemed to hold its breath. Something crossed J1's face that had never been there before. Something unguarded and warm and almost disbelieving. Like a man who had spent his entire life behind thick glass suddenly feeling heat for the first time. He started to smile. Slow, real, the kind that looked like it had been waiting years for a reason to exist. His hand moved to cover hers, then it stopped. His eyes came up, and Kate watched the warmth drain out of them like someone had opened a valve. When, he said, not congratulations. Natar, are you sure? Just when? Because he'd already done the math. I don't know, Kate whispered. His hand pulled back. You don't know when you got pregnant, or you don't know. I don't know who the father is. The words hung in the air like smoke. J1 went completely still. The timeline. Kate's voice broke. It could be you, from that first night. Or it could be Daniel. She nodded. The silence after was the loudest thing either of them had ever heard. J1 stood, walked to the edge of the rooftop, stood with his back to her, hands braced on the railing, looking out at a city that suddenly felt very far away. Kate sat at the table with the ring still between them. Unclaimed, the test face up beside it. 2 objects that should have meant the beginning of something. Instead, they just mocked the end. Say something, Kate whispered. J1 didn't turn around. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me this doesn't change anything. It changes everything. The words landed like a physical blow. Kate felt something crack inside her chest. So that's it? You're done? I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? He turned around, and the look on his face was devastating. Not anger, not disgust, just pain, raw and unguarded. I'm saying I don't know, he said quietly. I'm saying I need to think about whether you can love a child that might not be yours. About whether I can look at that child every day and not see him. The honesty was brutal. Kate stood, picked up the test. The ring stayed on the table. I understand, she said. Kate, no, I get it. She wrapped her arms around herself. I'm asking you to raise another man's child. A man who destroyed your brother. A man you've spent 3 years wanting to kill. Her voice broke. That's not fair to you. Nothing about this is fair. I know. She started toward the door. Where are you going? She stopped. Didn't turn around. Home. To figure out what I'm going to do? You're keeping it? The question hung in the air. Kate turned, looked at him, and in her eyes was something fierce and unbreakable. Yes, she said, I'm keeping it. She walked to the elevator. The doors closed. J1 stood on the rooftop with the ring still on the table and Kate's answer still ringing in his ears. His phone buzzed. He picked it up. A message from Sung. 4 words. Daniel knows. He's coming. 40 floors below, in an apartment that still had his name on the lease, Daniel Yoon sat in the dark, whiskey in his hand, untouched. The message on his screen was from a source he paid well, confirmed. She's pregnant, unknown paternity. He read it 3 times, set the phone face down, drank slowly, and in the dark something shifted in his expression. Not rage, not triumph, something that looked devastatingly like hope. Because if that baby was his, Kate would never be free, and he'd have 18 years to win her back. A woman on a bathroom floor. 2 men. One question nobody can answer. Who is the father of Kate's baby? Will J1 stay, or did the pregnancy just destroy the only real thing either of them ever had? And Daniel's hope. Is that the most dangerous thing in this entire story? Does this baby give him exactly what he's been waiting for? A door back into her life that the law says she can't close? Episode 2 drops next week. Subscribe right now, or you'll miss what happens when the paternity results come back. Drop your theory in the comments. Whose baby is it? Team J1 or Team Daniel? Because when the answer finally lands, somebody is getting destroyed. It might be Kate, it might be J1, it might be Daniel, or it might be all 3. See you in episode 2.